Hey everyone, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. In the employee world, at many firms, you're really told you have the flexibility to run your own business the way that you want to. You're told you can act like a business owner and think like a business owner, but sometimes when an advisor really starts thinking that way, they realize that there's a lot more limitations than they once realized, and that promise of business ownership is sometimes just kind of an empty promise. And today, we have one of my favorite clients of all time, Alex Williams, on the podcast. He was at Edward Jones for 25 years prior to launching his independent practice in 2024. And really, the story today is just how he got here, how things have been different with him and his clients on the other side. And then also just a little bit about the firm that he created, Stable Wealth. So, Alex, miss these Zooms. We haven't been on one in a while, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Thanks for having me on. I'm happy to share my journey from Edward Jones to Stable Wealth. I love to give insights just so advisors can really make the best long-term decision for them and their families, and most importantly, as well, their clients.
I love it. I think people are going to get so much value out of this. If you
Yeah.
don't mind just telling us, a little bit about your career prior to independence and the different roles you had in your previous firm, that would be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Corey. Yeah, so I started with Edward Jones back in 1999. This was my first job right out of college, my first real job right out of college. And I knew I wanted to be in wealth management. And Edward Jones, fortunately, gave me that opportunity for many years, go knock on doors and meet people where they were and really build a business in Olympia and Tumwater, Washington. So I built that business over many years. I also aspired to become a leader in the firm. I really had aspirations to move up and help others, not just clients, but help other advisors. And they gave me that opportunity to work my way through different leadership roles like performance leader, growth leader, but eventually become a regional leader for 7 years, where I oversaw over 60 offices in the South Puget Sound and kind of helped out from everything from A to Z in that level. And I ended that a few years before I decided to go independent. So yeah.
What made you decide to get out of leadership? Was it just too much time away from your business?
Yeah, it really leads me into, I think, partly what gave me the opportunity to go more independent or look at that opportunity, and that was my life had really changed. And I'll just paint the picture. A couple things had happened in 2019. My wife actually got a grant to go train with the U.S. Olympic coach for equestrian, and her goal was is still to be on an Olympic team. She's really committed to that, and I'm committed to supporting her in that dream and those goals. And so we actually bought a place down in Florida, and I'm located in Washington. So that was kind of the start to that process. And working remotely during COVID as an advisor and a regional leader, I think it was just time. My life had changed. My goals and aspirations had really changed from this wanting to move up the firm ladder to I really wanted to focus on my family, my clients, and really what was truly most important to me, my kids as well. So that really led to that change of stepping away from the regional leadership role, and that kind of opened the door to a number of questions that I had about where I wanted things to go long term in my life.
So walk through that a little bit. I mean, what were some of the things that really started getting your gears turning about business ownership and
Sure.
independence?
Sure. It really was something that I had very far in the back of my mind, but I think, and you hear it on these podcasts. And by the way, I'm probably one of your biggest fans before I transitioned because I listened to every podcast I could. I mean, I listened to hundreds of podcasts, including yours and other experts out there, really to do that due diligence. But even before that point, I really had never intended on leaving Edward Jones. I was a regional leader, general partner. Financially, it made all the sense in the world for me to just kind of put it on cruise control with my clients and eventually retire with a very healthy ownership in the company. But what really led me to it was a number of frustrations. I can't say it was one particular thing, there were many things that I can share with you, kind of the top ones, but the catalyst really was having a location in multi-states, being able to have an office in Wellington, Florida and Washington, and really be able to have that flexibility and freedom to make those decisions and have that on, my own call, my own timeline, really became apparent that as a big firm, innovation can happen, but how slow it can move and when it actually trickles down to you as the advisor, that's the other side. There's the words matching the actions, and that wasn't working in my situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. I just talked about this on a podcast the other day. I mean, some firms are on their 4.0 version of AI note takers
Yeah.
and, all of these other things that are being rolled out. If anyone hasn't taken a look at the Michael Kitz's technology chart, take a look at it. Every year it expands exponentially. There's thousands of different financial services focused technologies out there. And there's still firms out there that are, just rolling out Salesforce or just, rolling out some sort of watered down AI take note taker when some firms are just, so far ahead. So it's just really interesting to see.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, and the world really opened up when I did start looking at independence and doing that due diligence. And it wasn't just necessarily the location; it was the flexibility and the freedom of being able to offer better services for my clients, more in-depth services. And I'll give you an example. So in 2022, I was already investing for myself in alternative investments, private equity, private credit. I felt that diversification was very important. Now we're seeing it really come more mainstream today. But during that down market, I would look at my own portfolio compared to my clients' mix of these advisory solution accounts. And I just felt like I was really doing them a disservice by not having all the options on the table for them and also being able to do more in-depth planning. I'm a certified financial planner and doing tax planning, helping really within some in-depth estate planning are all things we do now for our clients that we were very limited. It was very compliant heavy and be very careful on what you say and how you say it. And it was, yeah, very, very limited, I would say, before.
Yeah, I think at a lot of, bigger firms, things like, alternative investments, that's kind of like a dirty word, right? I mean, they're just not really, available. And I think it's just important for financial advisors to understand and feel free to comment if you want, but just because there's more investment availabilities and more flexibility from a financial planning standpoint, that doesn't mean it's the Wild West out there. There's still, in-depth compliance, compliance rules and regulations and people that have your back to make sure that you're not getting in trouble. It's just a
Mhm.
little bit sometimes more consultative of a process where, they'll let some of these things be possible.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's so true. And it's not, you can't do it. It's how can we help you do what's best for the client? How can we help support that? The answer is not getting caught up in some attorney's office that looks at it not from the client's point of view and the advisor's point of view, at the firm's point of view, is the way I felt in a lot of situations there. And that can really slow things down to a snail's pace, for sure.
So we'll probably dig into this a little bit more, but like I'd love to just hear an example of like how with the extra flexibility that you have
Yeah.
with whether it's financial planning or alternative investments, like how
Yeah.
you've been able to take things to the next level with your clients.
Yeah, no, this is great. This is really, I get a lot of excitement around this topic because that was probably the thing that changed the most is the in-depth planning that we could do for our clients. And it was very exciting to know all the different options. Now, you can get paralysis by analysis, and there's so many things that you can do as advisors. You really have to focus on where do you think the best value is for your particular clients. So the areas that we really leaned into at Stable Wealth was one, we really wanted to have some tax planning. There were things like basic Roth conversions and other things that we really couldn't recommend or give analysis on for our clients at Jones at the time. And we really wanted to be able to do that. We felt those two things had to go hand in hand, tax planning and investment advice. Also, some estate planning. There would be times that we would tell clients for years and years, here's an attorney, go get your will done. They'd come in the next year and they wouldn't get it done. And it felt a little bit out of our control to where now we partner with a company that we can do it all in-house. We can do their trust, their will, their estate planning documents and help them out. And so there was some really broader pieces. But one of the things that I really wanted to do out of all those things the most was on the investment advice and the portfolios is to really install better diversification, in my view, having alternative investments, having a more dynamic process where I felt like I had a seat at the table. At my prior firm, basically you would hand over that control to the advisory department. They made all the decisions. If they liked their proprietary funds, which they did, and they would put maybe a little sliver in the portfolio, and before you know it, it became a third of the portfolio. I wanted to see the table and I wanted to say, hey, look, I appreciate, I need the experts, I need that advisory department, which we have here at Stable Wealth. But I also wanted a seat at the table to say, okay, I think there's some risks or some things that really apply to my clients and my comfort level that I want to make sure those portfolios have. And now we have that in place. So I think that flexibility and freedom to do what we feel is best for our clients, but also still not give up that advisory department was really a key thing. And I'm just very excited to have that seat at the table now.
I love it. That's so much good information in just a couple minutes. I really appreciate it. Hey, breaking in real quick. I really hope you're enjoying this episode and finding my YouTube channel of value. If you're a high performing financial advisor that can use somebody as a guide or a resource to explore all your transition options out there in the marketplace, I'm a non biased, independent transition consultant that can help make this process so much easier for you. And another plus, it costs absolutely nothing to work with me. If you want to have a conversation, please feel free to text, call, email, DM me. My contact information is all over this episode, and I'll let you get back to it. So, I mean, Alex, throughout the due diligence process, when we were working together, I mean, I feel like you didn't necessarily have, concerns about clients coming with you. I think you, like, and maybe I'm wrong, but everyone has a little bit of fear, but you were confident in the value, I think, that you were, providing for your clients. But what were some of the concerns
Mhm.
when you were going through this process about going independent?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think during the process, I felt like, 110% of my clients would come. Not only would they come, but then I'd get new friends and family. And so, there were some lessons learned from that I can dive into. I think I had done some businesses before, so running a business wasn't necessarily the concern. I think it was just the maybe a little bit of fear of the unknown. Like you don't know what you're exactly stepping into. You have an idea. Like I said, I did a lot of due diligence, did numerous home office visits. I felt like by the end of it, and that's a whole different thing we can get to how I selected the firm, and a lot of credit goes to you because I think without you, I don't know I would have ended up where I am today, and where I ended up is exactly where I need to be. I think it was, yeah, fears of the unknown. And then as I went into the transition, I think understanding that you're going to work really hard. That first 90 days, boy, that was like becoming a new advisor again. I probably have a few more gray hairs coming in from that period of time, but it was also very rewarding, and there were numerous surprises, and kind of that unknown became more known. I realized that, yeah, absolutely, the majority of our clients did business with myself, my long-term assistant Cindy, who I wouldn't do this, I couldn't do what I do today without her. And really they relied on that relationship and not the logo or the color on the statement. That was very eye-opening in a good way. On the flip side, I think some of the unknown of there were a couple clients, not 110% did come with us. We got around 85% of our clients moved over with us, and that was great. And we got some referrals and even some more assets from that. So it worked out really well. But there were a handful of surprises that I thought this person loves us. They'll absolutely come with us. And they valued that certainty in their eyes. That certainty was that statement, was that logo. And no matter who was their advisor, they were certain of that. So there were a few surprises there, but overall, I don't know that I had a lot of nervousness going into the process because I had done all the due diligence and I knew that this was the absolute right decision. I never looked back after I left.
How did your clients respond when they found out that you were moving? Like, was there a lot of questions? Was there blind trust? A
Yeah.
combination of both? Can you walk through that a little bit?
Yeah, yes, yes, and yes to that. I mean, yes, there was some clients that had a lot of questions and they wanted to come meet us with multiple times. They wanted to make sure, I mean, who is this stable wealth? We're partnered, of course, with LPL and ROSJ Financial Advocates, which is great. I could spend the whole podcast probably telling you some really positive things about them, but they did have a lot of questions. They did want to know who we were partnered with, that their money was safe and they were well protected from that standpoint. As far as dealing with us, though, there were numerous clients that also said, Alex, we do business with you. We do business with you, and wherever you're going is where we're going. And that was very rewarding. And on the flip side, it was humbling too to go through this process, but in a good way.
That's awesome. That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Um, how are you? Let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the initial struggles in the beginning. You're
Sure.
you're
Yeah.
you're moving your business over. You're used to all of these things being taken care of for you, and then all of a sudden, you're the CEO, you're the technology person, you're all of these different things. Can you talk about some of the things maybe another advisor can expect to give them more gray hair in the first couple months?
Yeah, I think with a couple things that I'd say about that. First, there are a lot of decisions to make. You are running payroll, you are handling health insurance. In the state of Washington, guess what? You now have to deal with business and occupation tax. There are some different things that are out there. But I think if you have a really good partner and if you have a good consultant like yourself, they're going to prepare you for this stuff. And so I didn't never felt really blindsided. I always asked, okay, I don't want to reinvent the wheel here. What are the top advisors using? So when it came to my CRM, when it came to the financial planning software and tools, I really did trust and lean a lot on, yes, making my own decision, but hey, let's not reinvent the wheel here. Many people have done this, and they've done it for years and years and years. Let's take the best ideas, the best practices, and let's see how they fit within what we want to build here at Stable Wealth. So I really felt like that was part of the decision process. Now, are there hiccups? Absolutely. There are things that we learned as far as paperwork. Repapering your clients, it's a big job. Is even if you can do all the DocuSigns and you want, it still is a process of getting all that done, and it takes a good 3 to 6 months to really have everything settled to where it gets kind of back to, hey, we're kind of back to normal now. Now we can just get back to our annual reviews on managing portfolios, and not only that, but now we've got all these other services that we can provide, and that's really where the excitement comes. So I think there are some things that they need to be aware of. I mean, definitely the repapering is one. For Edward Jones specific, I mean, when Edward Jones owns let's say his ownership on the annuities and insurance, that's a little bit different process of how to transfer that. So it was a little bit of a learning curve. I think if you do some due diligence, you talk to somebody like myself who's gone through the process, it's going to go a lot smoother for you. You don't have to, relearn these things. But yeah, there are some things that you have to deal with. I would say for me, it was more administrative. Yes, there's a handful of clients that didn't come, but in the end, it's worked out. The advocates and the people who we really want to pour into, well, they're here with us. So
That's great. I appreciate it.
yeah.
Inside of these broker dealers,
Hmm.
your first decision is figuring out where you're going to go, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
a significant amount of time. But what a lot of advisors don't know is after that, like that's when the real decisions come. The financial planning software, the
Yeah.
CRM, the insurance you're going to provide for your staff, the office space and negotiation, all of those different things. And you were a really entrepreneurial guy already, like in spirit, just from our conversations we had together. But
Yeah.
a lot of people kind of get stalled at that
Hmm.
point, and there's
Hmm.
just so many different vendors out there in the industry that are absolute pros at this stuff, and
Hmm.
they'll walk you through all of those specific areas, help
Hmm.
you launch an awesome website and get, the things that you tell clients every single day that make you successful, that make them comfortable with you, like on paper, on a website. So don't overthink a lot of these things. If there's something that's, really nerve-wracking to you, I could almost guarantee there's some absolute pro out there that could handle that and outsource it. Which is one thing I think is just super cool about the independent channel.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are endless amounts of resources that you have. I mean, for everything that you mentioned, whether it's marketing, branding, building portfolios, I mean, whatever your hang up is about considering independence, there are resources that can do it and help you, teach it to you and get you comfortable with that process. So, in the end, is independence, right for everybody? No, I mean, Edward Jones, there are certain people that they're going to be a better fit in that firm or wirehouse firm or maybe a bank. But for somebody who wants more control and to be able to have the options to make decisions that they feel is best for their clients, their family, and the business that they build, that enterprise. I think that that's really important to explore. I mean, what are you building for, and where do you want it to be? Where do you want to be 5, 10 years from now? What do you want it to look like? And I think that's an important question to ask yourself.
I love it. Do you want to talk about financial advocates for a little bit?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
why you chose them? So, a lot of financial advisors
Mhm.
in a firm like LPL, they
Mhm.
think I'm going to move to this firm and I'm going to be one of 30,000 plus financial advisors. And it
Sure.
doesn't necessarily have to be that way. There's
Mhm.
organizations like financial advocates in LPL and other organizations that could kind of make you feel like you're inside of a fraternity of close-knit people, inside of a big university is the way that I kind of like to say it. But like I'd love to hear why you decided to plug into one of those communities instead of doing it on your own.
Yeah, really good question. So financial advocates, that's our OSJ. And I mean, a great way that I would explain it coming from my world at Jones was it was like having a region. Like at Edward Jones, you had a region, you had the support structure. And going into independent, if you go to, LPL or another independent firm or an RIA, you kind of feel like, okay, now I got to rebuild everything from the ground up. Well, I really felt like I wanted what you called supported independence. So I did want independence. I did want that flexibility and freedom, but I did not want to reinvent the wheel. I wanted to outsource things like compliance, marketing, building a website, having a virtual admin that could help Cindy without hiring a media another person on staff, portfolio management and trading. So I would say I really can't speak highly of them enough. Without them, I don't know if I would have ended up at LPL or some other firm, but it was after exploring LPL and financial advocates as a package, it made it as clear decision as possible. It was a very easy decision at the end. It wasn't a financial decision at all. It was, this seems like home to me. And it has absolutely been that. I mean, from everything from having regional events where they bring in top speakers and other advisors at such a high level to network with. I'm on their advisor panel as well. So I get a lot of insight and I get a lot of say. They really want to hear my feedback, and I feel heard and felt. So that's been great.
That's great. I mean, for other advisors considering if a big firm and big firm tools and capabilities or something,
Mhm.
that excites you, but you're worried that you're going to potentially get, lost in the fold, this is a perfect scenario where you still have ownership and autonomy, but you're part of a couple hundred person, organization on the chassis of one of these big independent broker dealers that kind of have the ability to give you the best of both worlds. So, super glad you found them, Alex.
Yeah, yeah, and I would say that they offer. I mean, when I looked at and I did a lot of research and I looked at what is an OSJ. It's kind of a way for you to have that layer of compliance. I really don't feel that at all with financial advocates. Yes, they have compliance. Yes, they'll help make sure that I'm absolutely, if I get audited, we look great. But on the other hand, they do things like business coaching. I have a Don Williams is my business coach I talk to on a weekly basis. At a firm like an Edward Jones, it was all volunteerism. It was somebody mentoring somebody. It was paying it forward because you were mentored, which is a great culture. I think it's hard to compete with, but having somebody that is strictly there, that is their role as your business coach, as an advocate for you to make sure that if you've got any problems in this big, like you said, 30,000 advisor firm, you're not going to get lost in the shuffle. That is extremely valuable. So for us, it was the perfect fit.
Awesome feedback. I
Mhm.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So, you talked about this a little bit in the beginning with the financial planning, being able to incorporate alternative investments. But, for an advisor that is over in the employee world right now and they're considering going over to independence, you know, what are some ways that you're working differently with tech, with money management, like communication to your clients, like working with staff? You don't have to cover all of them, but do you just have a couple examples that, just get you pretty excited?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing that we do partner with is a company. Their name is Horizons, and so you may be familiar with Horizons, but they help us with our portfolio management. And I mentioned, a seat at the table. So what does that look like to me? Every quarter, I get together with them, and we go over every fund, every ETF, every position that we have in our models that have been built for our clients that we've customized. They're stable wealth specific models. They're not a cookie cutter thing that you're going to get across the board. They're for our clients and our clients' needs. But every quarter we get together, we go over every single holding. If something's underperforming or taking on too much risk, or the market just calls for a different strategy, we make that decision. And if something goes on in the world, like when the tariffs were started and the market was reacting, we immediately got on a call. We made some adjustments based upon what we thought could take advantage of the downturn and rebalance the accounts at the same time, which was, it sounds like it's a lot of work, but if you have the right partners in place, not only is it not a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun and it's a lot of, I guess it just feels good that you have that control and that say so to really run those models. So that's been part of it. I think the tech stack, I mean, we did select some items. We use Wealthbox for our CRM. We use eMoney for our financial planning tools, Holistic Plan for our tax planning. So we really did some good research on, hey, who do we want to partner with? And really dove into that. And that's been fantastic. So I think we're doing a much broader wealth management practice than we've ever done before. I mean, the term holistic gets thrown around a lot, but I really feel like when I look at these family offices, especially down here in Palm Beach, there are really a lot, we're very, very close to what they offer. I mean, if you take a look at their value proposition and stable wealth, I'm really excited to go head to head there.
I love it. That's
Yeah.
awesome. So, all of this is amazing information. Um, Before we start to like just dig in and understand what you're building at
Mhm.
Stable Wealth, is there anything, you think that financial advisors should know prior to starting exploration or making this leap, that maybe you wish you knew when you got started?
I mean, an answer I hear a lot is, "Oh, I wish I would have done it sooner." And I don't know that that was the case for me. I think it was the right time, the right things had to take place in order for me to leave a firm that I was very ingrained in, that I had given so much to over my career. So, but I do think at the same time, I think advisors should explore the opportunities out there. They should know what's available. When you're in a firm that really insulates you and you're not exposed really to a lot of other firms. You're not going to industry events a lot with other advisors and getting a take on what's good and what's not out there in the industry. I really do think you should do your own due diligence on that piece. And maybe where you're at is exactly where you should be, and you'll end your career there, and that'll be a great spot for you. But at the same time, there's so much eye-opening when we went through our process. And I had so many assumptions, and they were assumptions about a firm like an LPL or the other firms that we looked at that were completely blown open. I mean, you opened my eyes to so many different things. So having a consultant that says, hey, look, here's what you're seeing, but here's what I know, working with 1,000+ advisors. Here's what I know, and here's how it might fit what you're looking for. I think that was a good practice. And at the end of the day, if you do the due diligence and it make it, I was kind of thinking maybe this will just reaffirm after working with you, Corey. Maybe this will all just reaffirm that this is the place for me. I should stay at Jones and I should end my career here. But it was very clear after going through the process that I needed to go build my own business. So,
I
yeah.
love it. And what you said about, due diligence, in my
Mhm.
opinion, you did due diligence the right way.
Mhm.
You had the conversations with the recruiters, you did the technology demos, you went all the way through the process. You visited the home office visits. You like
Yeah.
truly understood, the culture. In my
Mhm.
opinion, there's a lot of financial advisors out there that have just been in limbo for years. Should I
Mhm.
stay or should I go? Maybe they had a conversation with a recruiter or maybe a quick tech demo. They found it interesting, but maybe
Yeah.
just not enough to move forward. I don't know
Right.
if you agree, but like I saw the light really come off with you when you actually went to the home office visits. You were looking the people in the eye you were going to work with every
Mhm.
single day. You went all the way to the finish line. And at the end of the day, you had the ability to put the right information in your stay or go equation to make a
Mhm.
smart decision. And there's just so many financial advisors out there, I think, that have been for the last 5 to 7 years. They've been window shopping, haven't been going deep enough,
Mhm.
and just wasting so much brain space. Should I stay or should I go? I promise you, if you're an advisor out there in that situation and you just go all the way through the process
Mhm.
and decide to stay or go from there without the misconceptions, with all of the information you need to make a confident decision, you're going to
Mhm.
save so much time versus constantly having that brain space of like having one foot in one boat and one foot in another. So hats off to you for doing it the right way.
Yeah, and I really couldn't agree with you more. I think you'd hit the absolute nail on the head with that. The most important step in the process was not all the pro formulas, was not the tech stack, was not the Zoom calls. The absolute key to me making my decision was that home office visit. Sitting down with the higher ups in the firms to really get a take of the culture. What is the right culture for me? That was a big thing at Edward Jones. And I really need to make sure that the culture fit what I was looking for. And I will say that was eye-opening. I think I had some ideas going into those visits, who I was going to go with if I did decide to leave. And I came out of that with a different route. It was absolutely the key to it. So I would say if you're doing due diligence, a key piece is do the home office visit. You go take the extra day. I know, especially if you have young ones like I did, and a spouse who's got really high level equestrian aspirations. That it's tough. It's tough to take that time off. But if you're going to make that decision to stay or go, you got to do it. There's no other. I tell everybody that who calls me up is where are you at in the process, and if they haven't done that they need to. I just absolutely am a huge advocate of the home office visit.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never give a financial advisor pressure if they have the right information
Sure.
and they decide to stay. But there's just so many that are they get so far they get so far down the mine and they're like an inch from hitting gold,
Yeah.
and then they just kind of decide to stop. So
Yeah.
that's the only time I'll ever pleasantly or professionally push someone to take that one extra step. But
Yeah.
Alex, I appreciate it. This was incredible. So much awesome information. Tell us what's going on at Stable Wealth. What's going on now? What's the future look like?
Yeah, well, I mean, I mentioned all the things that we're doing for clients. We're super excited about what we're building at Stable Wealth. Right now it's myself and another advisor, Mickey Dumont. and we've got a few admins, but we've got room to grow. So we are looking to continue to grow through advisors, especially in our Washington location. We are multi-state, of course, with a Florida location as well. So we're looking to continue to grow and really become that boutique wealth management company, a premier company. We help a lot of business owners, a lot of retirees, and really I do help a lot of people in the equestrian world. So the name stable has kind of a double meaning. We want stability there for our clients. Absolutely. We want to be that rock that they can count on. They know what they're going to get. But a stable is where you house your horses as well. And we want to be that home to our clients. So that's what we're really trying to build. We are in a growth phase at Stable Wealth. It's very exciting. And the cool thing about being independent, there's a lot of different ways you can grow. Sure, there's organic growth. I mean, we do workshops and we do tax planning workshops and things I wouldn't have dreamed about doing before. We definitely want to grow through our existing clients and help the next generation along, but also acquisition. It's been a really cool thing to see this opportunity that's out there. There's so many advisors that are going to be retiring in the next 5, 10 years. And there's opportunity if you have that drive to grow and acquire, that is on the table 100%. And I think that's a great opportunity as well. So yeah, it's just exciting stuff. It's really exciting for our clients to have them come in and say, hey, look, here's what we could do before for you. Here's what we could do now. That was really important when clients came over. I wanted to make sure that not only were they paying less than what they were paying before, but also our level of service was increasing drastically. Our value proposition was better. I really wanted to make sure that when they left, they said, okay, not only is it a good value, but I'm getting so much more than what I did with Alex before. I really wanted them to feel that, and we're seeing that right now. So it's been exciting.
I love it. I can't wait to hear updates as they come in terms of the future of stable wealth. And thank you so much again, Alex. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Thanks for all your help, and definitely be an advocate for you as well. Having that independent consultant, it's huge. Absolutely, the recruiters all will tell you their firm's the best, and they've got great points to come across. But to have somebody in your shoes, in your seat, to be able to see everything that you've seen, guide you through the process, especially how well Edward Jones has been fantastic.
I
So thank you.
appreciate it. Thank
Yeah,
you so much, Alex.
yeah,
And for other financial advisors out there, if you found anything in this podcast useful as through your thought process or your due diligence search, I have over 250 videos asking the top 100 questions that financial advisors have asked me over the years when they're starting this process, and hundreds of other real accounts from financial advisors telling their story about the other side. And also check out my website, corey.whalen.com. I have tons of case studies, white papers, and all of my videos on my website as well. So, Alex, thank you once again. And I really hope to talk to anyone that's interested in talking soon. I hope you have a great day, man.
my pleasure, Corey. Take care.
Talk to you soon.